What's up, everybody? Today we have Travis Chappell on, and Travis shares how he made a life-altering decision about leaving literally everything he knows in his life, which was everything, his people, his friends, his entire being, to pursue something crazy, and more or less how he's made it work for himself. And I think it's a great show. I think it's a lot of deep conversation and deep thought processes that you need to be asking yourself if you haven't already. So I think you're going to very much enjoy it. Let's check out what he has to say. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of the GOOYOW Now show. I am your host, Bob McIntosh, and I am very excited to have on Travis. We're just gonna do a like single name, like Cher or Trump or
That's exactly right.
Own the single name. You know, it's funny. It's just a complete side note. Someone told me one time, there's like, you know, you've made it in life when you have a singular name, like just Travis.
Yeah, I don't know if I've made it in life, except for it's only basically that I was just too lazy to type my last name in the chat there. So yeah, I don't know if it's
maybe that's what it takes. Laziness creates greatness when it comes to naming.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm excited to have you on. So thank you for being here. A little bit about how we met. So obviously we met in a mastermind, and it's funny. I keep doing episodes. I'm like, man, like I met this person in a mastermind. So if you're like considering doing podcasting or wanting to level up the game of the people that you meet, clearly, apparently, according to me, masterminds is the best way to do that.
Yeah, for real.
And yeah, so we met, and I actually had the honor of being on your show, on your podcast show early on. I don't remember the exact episode number to be real, but I know it was earlier on.
It was a while back. Yeah, it was a while back, man, because I started the show like 2 weeks before I went to the first Thrive. So that I went to, which would have been 2017. So yeah, I mean, you must have come on maybe 2-3 months after that. So
I was
maybe
say,
episode
I remember
40 something.
It was in Buffalo, I think. So it was probably like 2017. I think. Yeah. So, which ironically, I'm in Buffalo again right now.
Nice.
Just got here a couple days ago. But yeah, so I know that you've built a pretty successful podcast, had on a lot of really great people, had some amazing conversations with some folks. So I think for a lot of my audience who is either getting going in their own podcast or in their own journey of entrepreneurship, or even a lot of cases, people who have had a lot of success, I think there's a lot of value that you can provide. So I'm excited that you're here, and I wanted to thank you again for being here, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, bro. Of course, happy to chat and have a conversation.
Perfect. So for everyone that doesn't know you, just a little bit about your background, kind of what you do, and let's go from there.
Sure. So grew up, I'll just kind of give you just like a Cliff Notes version, grew up in a really, really religious bubble / community from the time that I was 2 or 3 until the time I was about 20, 21. So literally I went to church on the same campus that I went to school, and I went to school there from, graduated kindergarten, the same campus that I graduated from college on. So from kindergarten all the way through senior year of college, I was at this one campus, basically really 7 days a week. If you really think about it, because on Saturdays we did what we called quote unquote soul winning, which is basically just going out, knocking on doors and inviting people to come to church on Sunday. And then we had church on Sunday, three different services on Sunday, and then we had church on Wednesday, and then we had school every day of the week. So wow. It was kind of a unique experience growing up, and I obviously didn't look at it that way until I got out of it, and then kind of looked back on it, was like, wow, that's kind of an odd, unique way to have grown up. But that's just what it is what it is. You know what I mean? It was what it was at the time as well. So I say all that. It
gives you great perspective too, to be able to say, oh man, like not many people can say that they've been through something of that nature. So
yeah, for sure. It definitely gives me a greater perspective on trying to understand where other people are coming from and what people believe, because my beliefs have changed so much. And when I used to be so diehard a certain way, and then now I'm not that way, it's made me more open to what other people have to say. And I think that people who never challenge the beliefs that they were raised on don't have that perspective. They still just go throughout life accusing accusing people of being wrong instead of being open to what other people have to say. But and then that's a completely separate conversation that we get into if you want to. But yeah, so it kind of gave me a unique perspective. But I say that to say that basically in that culture, they pushed you to go into full-time ministry with your life. We didn't have a career counselor that asked us what we wanted to do. It was basically like, are you going to go into ministry? You're not going to go to ministry. If you are going to go to ministry, here's an application to the college that's on this campus. And if you're not going to go into ministry, then, good luck doing whatever it is that you want to do. Like they wouldn't like facilitate anything beyond that decision. You know what I mean? Like if you want to go to military, if you wanted to become an engineer, they're not like, oh, you need these grades and these transcripts to go to this university, and here's how to fill out that application. Like there was none of that. It was basically like, if you're going to ministry, here's the path. If you're not, then good luck. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. So I went the ministry route, which I went to college on that same campus, purely ministerial college. I graduated with a degree in Bible and church ministries. By the time I graduated, I basically realized I didn't want to be doing that anymore. But the difference is that I couldn't just go like sleep on a friend's couch, because I got married right before I graduated. And then right after I graduated, I bought a house. So I had a mortgage and a wife, and was still kind of stuck trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And during that time, or during college, I was doing door-to-door sales. And so after I got out of college, I was like, well, I was pretty good at this door-to-door sales thing. And this degree that I have that's in Bible and church ministries probably isn't going to land me a job anywhere, especially because it was unaccredited. It was even worse than a regular Bible church ministries degree, because it was unaccredited degree. And so at that point, I was just like, well, what else do I do? So I just kind of like used the skill set that I had kind of developed in college for selling, and I did door-to-door, 100% commission, door-to-door sales out of college, because that was really all I knew to do. And after having some success with that, like the first year that I went full time after college, I pulled six figures out like age, 22, 23, whatever I was at the time. And it was kind of counterintuitive what happened after that, because you would think that as a young kid who made six figures in 20, 25-hour work weeks, because we'd only worked from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. We weren't a summer program that was putting in 12-hour days. We were working year round. So we'd work when people were home, 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock, or 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock, or 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock, depending on different seasons and when it got dark and things like that. So, 25 hours a week, making six figures, like hanging out with friends on the weekend, having fun. It would seem like that's a good opportunity. You should stay there, but when I looked,
life, right?
Right. Right. And the problem was that when I looked into the future, I knew that I wanted a lot more, and I wanted to get there a lot faster. And I knew that I was already bumping up against the ceiling of where I was, the opportunity that I had there specifically. And so that was a scary feeling, to be at that point when you're that young, to feel like you're already almost like brushing up against, like I say that I was like brushing up against it, because there was some more potential there, and I could have probably made some more, but it would have been incremental, and it would have taken longer to have that incremental change. And it was just like, this doesn't seem like the risk reward profile is worth it. And so at that point, I just kind of stopped. The interesting thing about 100% commission sales is that you can't just half-ass it. You know what I mean? I couldn't just show up to work and collect my paycheck while I figured out what I wanted to do, and just be on Facebook at my cubicle all day. If you're either all in and you're selling and you're doing well, or you're not doing well at all. And so I was basically left at that point to try to figure out what I wanted to do. And I, again, didn't have a degree that mattered. I didn't have any experience doing anything else. I applied for a ton of sales jobs, but because I was 100% commission door to door, nobody gave me a job. They didn't, the corporate world wanted me to have corporate experience, but I was like, I don't have corporate experience because nobody will give me a shot, but I'll guarantee you that I'll sell more than all these guys. You know what I mean? I've been selling harder and colder. And if you give me warm leads that I get to just walk into somebody's house, they're expecting me to be there, I can close that all day. Was my mentality at the time. I figured people would give me a shot. Somebody's got to give me a shot. You know what I mean? And nobody did. They were looking for more experience doing the sales in the corporate setting, and I didn't have that. And so I was just kind of like, well, what do I do? Felt kind of like a failure, felt, I got an unfair shake because I didn't have access or exposure to traditional career building opportunities that most, teenagers or young adults might've had growing up. And so I knew at that point, I basically had two decisions. One, get mad and upset and blame everybody, or two, take responsibility and figure out a way to make it happen for myself. And I opted for number two, because that's the only way that leads to the path, or leads to the destination that I wanted to be at. And so I just kind of for the first time in my life, started consuming a lot of information and content and dove into personal development for the first time ever, read some books and some audiobooks, and then started listening to podcasts for the first time. And that's when I started thinking, like, I think this would be a pretty cool path.
Cool. So you kind of like found podcasts, and then, were you at that point, like, were you a consuming junkie? Because I know a lot of folks go on this path of, I heard this recently, I don't remember where it was, but they become learners instead of earners. So rather than implementing the knowledge, they just keep continuing to get knowledge. And there's nothing inherently wrong with getting knowledge as long as you're implementing it. So did you find yourself in that path of like constant, consuming, or did you like start to implement it immediately?
Yeah, I definitely didn't implement it immediately because it wasn't really directed learning. I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I know I want to. It wasn't like I know I want to be a marketer. Let me go learn about marketing and implement it in my marketing agency. It was like I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want to do. Like, look, bro, I looked at FBI applications. I looked at how to become a firefighter. I looked at so many different opportunities at that time because I was legitimately doing the work of a 15-year-old kid in the body of a 23-year-old guy with a mortgage and a wife. You know what I mean? So I was very much just in consumption mode because I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I'm not somebody who can just sit around and do nothing. So I was obviously doing some things in that time, and hustlers are always hustling something. And so I was just kind of hustling random things and selling random things and stuff. And when I was listening to a ton of podcasts and stuff, I was studying for my mortgage license, and I was going to start selling mortgages. And then a buddy of mine who I did door-to-door alarms with talked to me about this water purification system they started selling door to door, and the commissions were pretty big. So I actually took my mortgage exam and passed it, but I never did anything with it because this water opportunity came in. And so I literally was just selling water purifiers door to door until the podcast was making enough money for me to be able to move into doing online podcasting and online business full time.
Nice. Very nice. So did having a mortgage and a wife influence your decision making of like, hey, I'm looking for something more stable or not? Like I'm always curious in how that works for people.
Yeah, not really. Interestingly enough, I guess, because I knew that I wanted the potential, right? I was like, even if I go down the corporate sales job, if I'm here for 5 years and I'm a regional director of sales, like the max amount that I'm going to make at this company is like maybe $250,000 in a year. You know what I mean? Like it just didn't appeal to me. I was like that. And I'm not saying that that's a tiny bit amount of money. Like that's a good job. But what I'm saying is that I knew that I wanted more than that. And I knew that path was going to take like 25 years to accomplish the things that I wanted to accomplish in 10 years. And so just the other paths didn't have that same opportunity. It was kind of as simple as that for me. And I knew that the ability to sell would take me through any sort of slumps that I may have had. Like that's the big thing that I still have to this day is like, even if everything that I'm working on failed tomorrow, which I really, really hope that it doesn't, but if it did, you know what I mean? Like
where's the wood? We got to knock on the wood.
Yeah, right. Like I could go generate more income, next month and make pretty good money and try something else and do it again. You know what I mean? And so I just didn't, it's not like I don't have that anxiety of providing for my family because I do, but it just like I said before, the risk reward is something I always look at, and when I look at the potential reward of being able to accomplish the entrepreneurial dreams that I have, the reward far outweighs the risk that's involved.
Awesome. And I think that's a great way to look at it too, is understanding that risk reward, because for everybody, it's a little bit different. I remember when I first started my journey, I was married at the time, and that was a huge thought to me. I was like, oh man, like I'm the primary provider of income here. If I go do this other thing and I don't have anything else to support us, like what are we going to do? And so that really, limited down the availability of options. Like it's like, hey, like living nomadic and the mac and cheese diet just might not work when it's, when you're responsible for someone else's life in addition.
Yeah.
Not necessarily responsible, but like, that you do have some responsibility in that as well. So.
Right. And to give credit to my wife too, she was working at the time. So like during that time I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. She was working and pulling in a paycheck as well to like, help supplement our, and like pay our bills and stuff. So.
Yeah. So how did she take, I guess both this exit from, hey, I don't want to go down this ministry path anymore, and then to go even just, hey, not just like I'll say a normal route of a job, but like be like, hey, I'm gonna go this even to like the other side of crazy. And not say that that's necessarily crazy, but like for most of us, I would say as entrepreneurs, what we do is crazy. A lot of times
Yeah.
we're willing to give up, a 40-hour work week for a 100-hour work week just at the opportunity for something. So it's just a very different mindset. Was she 100% supportive? Was she on board, or was she like, no, I don't know about this?
Yeah, the jump from ministry to non-ministry was a lot bigger than any of the like entrepreneurial leaps or ventures that I've gone after. In that regard, she's always been fully supportive of me. I think
Awesome.
probably because she didn't have a ton of financial stability growing up. So it seems kind of counterintuitive because you think that she would like be looking for that, but I think that it just made her have a high tolerance for like no stability. But also she
Gotcha.
saw that even in college when we were still dating and engaged and stuff, that I was making better money than all of our friends doing door-to-door sales and stuff. And so and then my parents did pretty well with like real estate and different flips that they had, and they like I grew up like really like just middle class. Like my parents did well, and they were just really smart with their money, super frugal, and kind of the opposite of what her family was like growing up, and they didn't ever have extra money, and they were not disciplined with their money. And so when we got married, she very much just trusted my judgment on bringing in income and being smart with the money that I did make and not blowing it on dumb stuff like a lot of people do. So I think that I kind of got lucky in that regard, fortunate in that regard, that she trusted a lot of those decisions. The decision to leave ministry or to not pursue ministry was a lot more difficult because that was literally like a programming that we had in our brains from that. She grew up very similar to the way that I grew up. And so we had very much that same, mental programming in our heads that told us that that was the path that we were supposed to go down. So when that conversation was a lot more difficult than any conversation of like, I'm going to do this thing, or I'm going to do that thing, or I'm going to spend money on this mastermind, or I'm going to, invest in this new software company or whatever. Like those were always a little bit easier than that initial one was.
So were the people that I'm gonna make an assumption here that your entire life being surrounded around this ministry, all of your friends for a lot of were probably a part of that too. Was there a lot of resistance on you leaving from them as well, or
yeah, for sure.
And if so, what did that look like, and how did you overcome it?
Just about everybody, man. Just about everybody. There was a lot of resistance, and I don't even really like blame them or anything. It was just how it was. Like that was just the culture that we were brought up in. And so like in college, when I had an opportunity in the company that I was working at to take this like 6-figure role in a different market, and it would have taken me completely out of any ministry. And I talked to a couple people, and they were like, "Oh no, you can't do that. You got to just go do the ministry thing. Like this is what you're supposed to do." And so, from that point forward, after I talked to like 2 or 3 people about it, I just kind of kept it to myself because those were like some of my closest friends, and they were telling me to, not do that and to go into ministry. And so I just didn't feel the liberty or freedom to be able to talk to anybody about it, especially the authority figures that I had in my life. Like they were not interested in the other path at all. And one of the people that was really influential in my life was just, I had a meeting with them, and I was excited for it because I had been spending months wrestling with this decision, feeling really lonely about it. And then I sit down with him, and then he was just like, "Well, that's just the money talking, and sooner or later you're gonna have to give that up and go into ministry anyway." And then he just like went to the next point, and I was like, "Man, I've been wrestling with this for the past like 6 months, like losing sleep over it, trying to figure out what to do with my entire life. And like in a half a second, you just told me to, well, screw that and do this thing." And without even really trying to understand my perspective or my thoughts or my feelings on it. And so it was just kind of a lonely time period to be honest. I just kind of kept it all to myself and got really introspective and didn't tell anybody how I was really feeling about it until my wife and I moved away to Fresno, so I grew up in Southern California. Fresno would be Central California. And there was a pastor there who invited us to come out to work at his church. But he was the first person that ever told me, like, "Look, we just want you guys to be a part of the ministry here. So whether that means you just come here and you're a layman in the church and you work full-time somewhere else, or you work part-time at the church, we have a job available for you that would be part-time, or we have a full-time position available for you. We just want you to come out." And so that was the first time I ever felt like freedom to make a decision for myself. So I decided to move up to Fresno. When we got there, it took me like 3 weeks to decide for sure that I didn't want to be in ministry anymore. And it was like from there. So like as soon as I got out of the bubble, away from all the influence and authority that had been like guiding my life for the last 20 years, I was just like, I'm done. I'm not pursuing that path anymore.
Right. So shift in perspective certainly helped.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Experiencing, I think the number one thing that changes belief systems is experiencing something that's contradictory to what you've been taught to believe. And that's exactly what happened to me. There's just so many things that I experienced living real life, working somewhere that wasn't a church or a ministry, that went just completely against the grain of the beliefs that I had instilled in me since I was a kid. So experiencing those were really big factors in, changing a lot of the things that I was taught growing up.
I can totally get that. Even just like for me, and not coming from anything even remotely close to that, but even just growing up in a small town versus, a big city.
Yeah.
Even that, and again, that's not even nearly as I think influential on a lot of things, but still for me it is.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Okay. So you go up here, you get to Fresno. It takes you about 3 weeks, and you make this life altering decision that ultimately leads you here. So thank you for making that decision, man.
Yeah, for real. I thank my younger self for making that decision as well. So yeah,
like if I could ever do time travel, I'm gonna go back and be like, high five, bro. Good job.
For real.
Do you find yourself reverting back to any of the methodologies or thinkings, thought patterns that you had back then, and it's like a constant struggle, or did this like dramatic shift sort of erase that and allow you to start from scratch with building new thought patterns and new beliefs?
Yeah, it definitely took a while. It wasn't just like an overnight thing, but I would say now I'm sure that there's some stuff that I don't realize that I still do or believe, or something that is wired in my brain that I haven't figured out yet. But for the most part, I think a lot of that's been reprogrammed. I look at it very much the same way as like computer programming. Like you're born a blank slate, and then slowly but surely every thought, experience, teaching, authority figure, culture, society, messaging, marketing, news headline, everything starts to shape the person that you are and starts to code your brain to react certain ways, like program your subconscious to to train you how to behave. And when I became like a young adult, it was basically on me to reprogram a lot of that coding that was stuck in my head. And I think I met that challenge head on, and was at least willing to confront the scary thoughts of, wow, I could be wrong. And I think that has served me up to this point.
And that's amazing advice. Like, I love that, address the scary thoughts. Cause I think they are like the reason that I wrote the book Get Out of Your Own Way, and why this is the show now, is that I don't know, I've been on stage for whatever, like 3,500 hours, something like that, and I talked to probably more than 10,000 entrepreneurs in that time, and it's the same repeating. The excuse or the reason might change a little bit based on whatever their life situations are, but more often than not, it's either a failure to address those scary thoughts that you've been doing and continue to do, or it's avoidance of them. It's just like, hey, no, they're not there. But,
yeah,
so I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's difficult, man. It's really difficult. Everything that I did in my life was based on the belief system that I had. Everything. Where I went to college, the people that I hung out with, the activities that I participated in, the activities that I did not participate in, like everything that I did in my life was built on this one belief that I had. And if you challenge that foundational belief to your life, you challenge everything that you're doing. You know what I mean? Like when I was challenging this belief system, I was already married. So like shaking that foundation of marriage and thinking like, man, do I even believe in marriage? Do I even think this is a good thing? Like that's a scary thought to come up against when you're married. You know what I mean? And so like when you have to address all of those things and address all of those issues, it's a lot easier just to be like, nah, I don't want to think about this, and just turn on Netflix.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's very, very scary. And that's why I try to be as supportive as I can be for anybody that's trying to at least just challenge the beliefs that they were raised on. Because if you think about it, bro, think about the odds of being raised in the only correct belief system in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Uh-huh.
but everybody every day is arrogant enough to think that they happen to be raised, the lucky one that was raised with everything being 100% correct, and they've never challenged any of those beliefs and genuinely asked themselves if they have any reasoning why they believe those things. But they go their entire life believing it and living according to those beliefs, and it just is something that I'm just like, man, you gotta be willing to at least just be like, okay, I'm not wrong, but like, what if I am? You know what I mean? Like, if it were possible that I am wrong, what would that look like? You know what I mean? And being okay and being willing to address those things, because the biggest thing that one of the things that I hate the most, bro, is hypocrisy. Anybody that preaches something and then lives the opposite of what they preach, and that's rampant in the culture I grew up in, which is independent fundamental Baptist. Hypocrisy is rampant in the IFB movement, but it's also rampant in everyday life. And so if you can't live according to your beliefs, then why do you believe them, and what's the purpose of believing them? You know what I mean? So I just got to the point where it was an inconsistency in the way I was behaving, because I expected everybody else that I talked to be open to changing their beliefs to my belief. Like anybody that I was like, quote unquote, witnessing to, or people that we would go out, soul winning and talking to, like the people that I would talk to, I wanted them, like, no matter what religious background they came from, no matter what spiritual background they came from, no matter if they were atheist or Catholic or whatever it was, I wanted them to be open to the idea of being a Baptist. But if any of them invited me to their church, if any of them wanted to expose me to their beliefs, I would immediately shut it down and be like, no, that's just the devil tempting me. You know what I mean? Like, I would not be open to anything that they had to say. And I just kind of hit me as a young adult where I was just like, isn't this the epitome of hypocrisy to expect everybody I come in contact with to be open to everything that I believe, but to not be open at all to anything that they believe, even if it has validity? You know what I mean? Like if somebody says something, I'm like, oh, that actually sounds a little bit valid, I would just completely write it off instead of thinking about it a little bit more. You know what I mean? And so
wow,
it just got to the point where it was just like, I cannot live in consistency with my belief about avoiding hypocrisy if I'm not at least willing to be open to what somebody else has to say. And if you're open to what a lot of other people have to say, you'll find that you're probably a lot more like those people than you think you are, which is what, kind of led me down the path that I'm on now.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, as you're talking about this, related, but just more of on a funny note, but which is there was an episode of South Park where they all end up in hell, and it's like, wait, I was this religion, I was that one, I was this one. Wait, what was the right one? And the guy's got like a little binder. He's like, Mormon was the correct choice. Sorry, Mormon, you all chose wrong.
That's exactly right. Oh man, that show, bro, is so funny for that reason. Like it presents such like real truths in such a funny way to me.
Yeah, it's true. As you're talking about that, I was like, that's what I was thinking about. And it's true though, right? Like, yeah, how often are we not open? And by the way, if you're listening or watching this, understand that hypocrisy and being open to hearing someone else out is not just necessarily related to a religion specifically, but to your business, to an idea, to maybe one of your employees, or a contractor that you work with, or on a podcast or a show that you listen to, or it comes in all forms, not just this one form.
Yeah, it served me really well in business, man, because like I said, I think that it like going through something that dramatic at that young of an age, where it was just like my entire belief system has shifted, and everything that I thought that I knew, I'm not sure that I do anymore. Like I was so arrogant and foolhardy about my beliefs before, to where now it makes me understand that the odds of me being right now aren't good either. You know what I mean? Which is why I'm always constantly trying to learn new things, because like I know that like I'm still only 28, and even if I were 58, you can't know everything. Like we as a society, as a culture, science, like every discipline within science, all of those things are still incomplete. They're still being written on a daily basis. And so how arrogant is it for us to just think that we have the answers to everything? And so it served me really well in business to think that I have the answer for something, but also be willing to be open to somebody else's perspective on their answer, their solution for the problem, which a lot of times ends up being extremely valid, and I can learn from and implement and get out of my own way a little bit faster.
Yeah, that's perfect. So, do you think that in the process of doing this and the trauma that you had to go through and the realization that you had at such a young age, one of the questions I get asked a lot, and one of the questions I even ask myself a lot of times is, do you have to have that trauma to really get out there and be successful? And if so, does it matter how much? Like, is it like some sort of threshold of this is enough where you can figure it out? Because one of the things that I see a lot is, a lot of the people that I know, not all of them, but a lot of them that are very successful have experienced some sort of groundbreaking moment, whether it be a loss, a question, a belief change, or whatever. Do you think that that's necessary? Do people need to be asking themselves those things to get further along if they're not where they want to be right now, or not?
Yeah, it's a good question, man. And it's one that I've asked on my show a ton because it interests me a lot, because you're right. I've done almost 500 episodes of my show now, and looking back at all those people, almost all of them had something that happened that made them go a different path or motivated them to see an extra level of success that most don't. So, but I have had some people that didn't have that catalyst and that instigation to do those things. So I don't think that it's a prerequisite. I just think that most people don't allow themselves to be that thoughtful or introspective until something like that happens. Mm-hmm. Most people, when life is going okay, they're not trying to examine, what to fix or what to do better because it's going okay. And so they don't ever allow themselves to get deep into thought. They don't spend time with themselves. They're not doing meditations, and they're not avidly consuming new material to try to figure out what this problem is, this pain point is. You know what I mean? Like, one of the human beings' biggest motivators is avoidance of pain. And it's a much better motivator, as you know, than attraction to pleasure. And so just that that attractiveness to pleasure isn't going to be enough to move people in that direction. So I think more often than not, it's response to pain that gets people to move in that direction. But I don't think that it's necessary. I think that like, if you're listening right now and you haven't had one of these like traumatic, life altering belief changes or experiences or anything like that, I think that it's worth putting yourself through controlled struggle to build that muscle, because that's really what I think people who've been in those positions come out of it with. They come out of it with a muscle that knows how to get through struggle. It's become a habit to be able to push through struggle. And so I think that some people who maybe didn't have those types of things happen can put things into their daily routines to help themselves build habits that allow them to overcome struggle and have the mindset of somebody who overcomes struggle all the time and doesn't just give in to obstacles. That's why I like stuff like working out and getting up early and journaling and things like that, like doing things that most people aren't willing to do so you can have results that most people aren't willing to have. I think that especially if you haven't had one of those life altering things, if you didn't have a struggling, childhood, if you didn't have a story of an immigrant that, diving in dumpsters when you were 3, like if you didn't have those types of things, then I think that it's really smart to put yourself in situations where you are forcing yourself to do something that may be uncomfortable, but saying like, but getting to the root of, why do I want out of this so bad, right? Like doing a cold shower, or even if it's just like walking longer, like if you're going to walk into the grocery store and it's freezing cold outside, instead of sprinting over there, just walk leisurely next time and ask yourself why you are so intent on getting inside of the store. And is it that big of a deal to be in this cold for another 10 seconds longer? And push yourself a little bit, like just building up that muscle. It sounds so silly and sounds so little and minute, but if you just always put yourself in the habit of continuing to push through struggle and allowing uncomfortability to be something that you're comfortable in, I think that it will serve you tremendously down the road.
I love that answer. Love it. I mean, and like, so it's interesting having completed 75 hard just maybe about a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
Same thing. Like, you have to ask yourself in that program or anything of that nature, whether it's that one or not, why. I remember it was the day So around like day like 47, 48 to like 52. And I just got pissed. I started swearing. I was like, F this. Why am I doing this? Is stupid. What the look at that? And after I got done like venting, I stopped for a second. I said, why am I so angry about this thing that I'm choosing to do? Like, it's not like I'm being forced to do it. It's not like I have to, or I lose something. It's just a matter of I've made this decision. And it was very like you said, the introspection of that point of my thought process of going, why am I reacting this way was probably the most beneficial thing. And it's funny that it takes that long, right?
Yeah.
We talk about, all the habit books talk about 20 days, 30 days to form a habit. And it's like, sometimes you got to push stuff a little bit further to really, I might form a habit, but not really break through the reason why I need that.
Yeah, right. I'm actually on day 65 currly. 75
man.
hard. So yeah, right in the thick of it. But you're right, bro.
that.
Yeah, thanks, man. That like day 47, like somewhere like right day 37 to 47 was definitely the hardest for me. On this, like when you're on day 65, it's like, okay, we're almost done, right? But when you're at that point, it's like, shit, I have like 35 days left and I've already done 40. You know what I mean? Like,
it feels like it's never going to end, and it's been going on forever.
Exactly. Yeah. I thought I was totally opposite of what I thought would happen. I thought like halfway through it'd be like, oh, we're halfway through. Now the ticker's going down instead of like, being up, you know what I mean? Like I only have this many days left.
Journey lied to us. We're not halfway there.
Yeah, no kidding. Halfway there was a joke, bro. I was like, I was way more upset that week than I was even on like week 3. I was like week 3, I was getting into the swing of things, feeling pretty good about it. Halfway point, I was like, fuck this. This is ridiculous. But yeah, now day 65, so I feel like I'm over the hump, and I got 10 days left.
There you go, man. Well, if you finish, congratulations. It seems like you will. If you made it this far, I feel like it's not that much more to go. So that's awesome.
Yes, sir.
Dude, yeah, it is. And so the other thing that strikes me a lot about what you said is, is creating those points for you. So one of the things I did a very intense personal development course. It was 3 different events. Took first one was 5 days, and the second part was actually almost 3 months. But it's fascinating. Like you said, I think that's a great point. And I want everyone to take it away is, you said they have a muscle, right? Like, and the way that they described it to us was, hey, like, we're helping you build the tools in your tool belt. You're never going to overcome this thing or erase it from, this thing that's holding you back, whatever it is for you, is never going to be gone. It will always be a part of you. It's just a part of your programming that you grow up with. The best you can hope to do is be aware of when it's holding you back and have the proper tools to take it out. And, but I think coming to that point, like you said, is the muscle to understand, whether it be a memory muscle, whether it be a physical muscle, or whether it be an emotional muscle, to understand, hey, this is happening. This is a thing that I get to face and say, let me figure out what's going on here and make a decision to either change or not. But either way, knowing that I've made said decision also gives me accountability if it's not where I want to be when I'm at the end of that decision.
Yeah, right. It's the difference between, like they say that if you want an easy life, make the hard decisions. If you want a hard life, make the easy decisions. And that's, I mean, I don't know how else to say it better than that. It's just, if you make the decisions now that most people aren't willing to make, then you can live a life that most people won't be able to have.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that exact way, because literally, I don't know if you'll be able to see that or not, but on my phone.
Oh no! So yeah, there you go. Off. There you go. Yep.
The part of it's cut off. I need it because I changed my phone and I haven't changed the backtop, but I know what it says. So that's the more important part.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man.
So I want to ask you one more question, because I had written down one specific question I wanted to make sure I ask. I've loved where this has gone. Not at all where I was necessarily expecting it to, but that seems to be the case with a lot of my conversations on this show. And I love the fact that it does that, because it's a surprise then for me too. But so I know that you've, over the last few years, since that first episode that I was on your show with you on, you've been able to attract a lot of really high quality guests. And one of the things I get asked, even just in my circle, which I'm going to say straight up, my circle does not go even as far as yours does in terms of people that we know or that you would have seen out there, whatever. How do you continue to attract those kinds of people? And what's the mindset that you've had of coming from this ministry background and basically like, this is not a thing you do, to where you are now, especially at the age that you're at, which is, I'll say young. I mean, you're almost 10 years younger than I am. like that's an amazing accomplishment in and of itself. So what's the mindset behind there, and how have you been able to get out of your own way of coming from where you were to where you are now?
Yeah, for me, it was just that there was no other option. I was starting from zero, man. Like when I left that world, that was where my entire life was. Like I literally spent my whole life there. So when I left, and you know, my good friends, they were still my friends, but
Right.
they weren't like actively trying to help me be successful in this new venture. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they were on a completely different life mission than I was. And I don't blame them for that at all. It's just how it was. So when I started all of this stuff, it was literally from scratch. I didn't know, I'd never even like met a real millionaire, let alone had like a relationship or a friendship with one. You know what I mean? So it just, that message of trying to constantly connect and level up with the people that I was surrounding myself with just made so much sense to me. It just made sense to me that if I could connect with somebody who's up here at this level and I'm down here, then like just by hanging around them, I'm going to start moving up the ladder. You know what I mean? Like it obviously has to be followed up with action. You have to take action. You can't just hang out with people and hope to be better. And you can't continue to hang out with people if you don't get better. If people who are like up here allow you into their circle and you don't level up, like you're not gonna be able to hang out with them anymore, because people like that don't have time for people that aren't leveling up, right? So it just kind of became this loop that kept getting better over time. So I built a show on networking. It's called Build Your Network. I teach people how to build relationships better. And then I used the tactics that I learned from the people on the show to go get higher quality people. And then I'd ask those people what their tactics were. And then I'd use those tactics to go get higher quality people. And it just kind of kept happening over the course of several years. And now, yeah, right. And it did. And that's a good way to explain it, because now at this point, it's to the point where for the majority, at least in this entrepreneurship world, like almost anybody that I reach out to, I can get in touch with now for especially for an interview on my show, which is, you know, obviously pretty helpful to tool to have in your tool belt, to use your phrasing from earlier. And I have, you know, not much to say on that, except for that the mindset was that it's possible. That's the biggest mindset shift that happened for me, because most people just write it off like it's impossible, right? They'll look at like a list of people that they want to, you know, have on their podcast or whatever, and it's like, that's impossible, and they immediately take it out of the realm of possibility in their mind, which takes it out of the realm of possibility in real life. Because if you believe that that's the truth, then that's the truth, regardless of whether it is or not intrinsically, right? So I just kind of took that mentality away from myself at the beginning. And I always like to ask myself, like, okay, it's impossible, but like, if it were possible, what would it take? You know what I mean? Like, what would that look like if it were possible? And what would I need to do in order to be able to do that, if assuming it's possible, right? And it just led me to the belief that, like, if somebody has a pulse, I can get in touch with them somehow.
Right.
And the more famous that person is, the more difficult that's going to be, but it's still possible. Like, they're alive. They have a beating heart. They can be talked to somehow. It's just up to me to try to figure out how, not to limit myself and say that it's impossible. So I think that was probably the number one mindset shift for me, was going from like, oh, this is impossible, to being like, okay, but if it were possible, how would it be done?
Dude, I love it. And by the way, like, I don't know, again, probably not going to see this, but this is my list. I don't know if
there it is, bro.
Dream 100 Pod. So I've literally got in my binder like the 100 people, and I'm like, the large majority of the people on here I've got zero connection to, but there's a few that I do. And I'm like, okay, leverage those few. And I'm like, I love that you're like, it's possible, because I was making this list and I was talking to a friend, and like, dude, there's no way that guy's coming on your show. And I was like, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow,
right?
Maybe not next year, but at some point, right? So
exactly.
I think that's huge. So I love that I'm like, sweet, I'm doing it right.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's just the bottom line, man. It's like, everybody starts somewhere, you know? So like, maybe I can't get them on now, but in 5 years from now, I could probably get them on, you know, like if I keep doing this path, I could probably get them on at some point. Just have to figure out how, just have to figure out the connection pieces there. So we actually ended up building a software to help people do exactly that. Is specifically for podcasters and YouTubers and content creators, where you can, like, it's called Guestio. So you can go on there and book high level guests for your show. And there's a lot of there's like a paid marketplace for like the higher level folks that are more in demand. And there's a free marketplace. You can go get in touch with a bunch of other people to bring them on your show and just make it super easy in the booking process. So we're trying to like do a little bit on our end to bridge that gap a little bit, so that when you do make that list, you can go to a software like that and be like, oh, there's these 7 people out of these 100 are actually on this software. You know, they're $1,000 for an interview, but you know, these other 6 people know this person really well. So if I pay for this one, I could probably get these people on organically after I leverage that name. You know what I mean? So we're trying our best to kind of bridge that gap through creating different tools and things like that.
That's cool. And it's guest.io is the link to sign. Can people sign up still for it? Or I know it was like in beta for a little bit
yeah. So yeah, we're calling it beta. It's live. Anybody can sign up for it. We're just calling it beta because we're not like promoting it like crazy right now, because we're still just trying to work through the workflow, make sure that everything's like, we're just trying to find that product market fit, really just trying to make sure the people that are using it are enjoying it before we like spend a ton of money and bring a bunch more people on there. But yeah, it's at guestio.com. So it's guestio.com is what it is.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it. Perfect. And guys, I know I'm actually on there. I signed up right when I got the email from you. Actually, I got an email yesterday, maybe. And I'm like, it's in my queue. I'm like, oh, that's right. I need to go back and finish some things there. So
yeah, nice. We've added a ton of stuff since we launched First Bro. So yeah, definitely go check it out. And there's a bunch more guests in there, free and paid, that are pretty hot. Like there's some people that put it for free where I was like, oh, okay, cool. I thought they were going to charge. You know what I mean? So yeah, so definitely go check those people out before they start charging.
Yeah, right. For sure. I'll have to do that. Cool. Well, man, dude, I truly appreciate the conversation. It's been, I think, enlightening, and hopefully for all of you guys watching, or guys and ladies, or any others watching, listening, enjoying, you took away. As always, you can go check out any show notes, links, things like that we'll have on the site. Travis, where can people find you if they want to connect with you and check out your show as well?
Yeah, best place is probably Instagram. I spend the most time over there. So that's just at Travis Chappell, 2 P's, 2 L's, and my last name, Travis Chappell, over on Instagram. And then anything else, you can go to my site, which is just travischappell.com.
Perfect. Definitely check him out. Check what he's got going on. I know I've gone through some of your stuff. I've obviously been on your show and listened to your show. I've found a lot of value in it. So I know if you're listening and watching this, you'll appreciate that as well. So as always, for each and every one of you on watching, listening, wherever you are, thank you so much. Make sure you rate, subscribe, and review this podcast or YouTube show. Leave a comment. Let me know. I don't care where you are. Just engage with me. Let me know you got going on, because at the end of the day, while this show is awesome for me, I want to be able to help other people, and I can't do that unless other folks share it out there. So tell a friend. I always like Andy Frisella's way of saying this, so I'm going to give fist bump to him, which is there is a price for the show, and that is share it with one person you know, because if you enjoy it, they probably will as well. So thank you all for being on, and we'll see you guys on another episode. Travis, thank you so much for being here, man. I truly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Bob. Appreciate it.